Hello and welcome back to another breed research installment. Today we're talking about a Labrador Retriever. I'm trying to get some of the most common breeds out there, but if you have a breed that you really want to hear on this series, please go to the description in the episode show notes and there'll be a contact me form and you can submit a breed. Or if you follow me on any socials, whatever, just message me because right now I've already gone through the ones that were requested. So if you have any requests, please put them in. Until then, I'm just going to kind of follow my fancy. So, to get us started with the Labrador Retriever, we're going to talk a little bit about its history, its origin, and just some fun facts about it. So, the lab actually originated in Newfoundland, not in Labrador, which, by the way, Labrador is a place. You might have known that. You might be smarter than me. Geography is truly one of my weakest points. But in Newfoundland, where labs were working alongside fishermen, and they were retrieving in the nets, they were hauling in lines, and later they were taken to England and refined into bird hunting dogs that we know today. A fun fact about labs is one of the reasons that they are such good swimmers is they have what is called an otter tail, which is just means it's like pretty wide, and it acts as a rudder as they're swimming, so it helps them to direct themselves, and their coats repel water, making them born for the water that they so dearly love. Typical size, males are going to be 65 to 80 pounds, females 55 to 70 pounds. They're strong, very athletic, and they have a very solid build. They typically are 21 to 24 inches tall at the shoulder. Sometimes you will see labs much larger than this in the weight category because they are quite easily overweight. Their coat is short and very dense. It has a double coat, which helps them to repel that water. They also shed heavily year-round with seasonal shedding bursts called molting or blowing their coat, just like the Australian Shepherd, which we have talked about previously. They typically live 11 to 13 years with good health and good weight management. For colors, the ones that are recognized by the AKC and that can be registered are black, chocolate, and yellow. All other variations are not a true colorway for the breed. Like we have discussed in previous episodes, the more exotic the color, the more issues they tend to have, whether that be physically or mentally. For example, I have never met a well-balanced silver lab. Overall, my opinion on exotic colors and these breed variations is going to be sticking with their natural coloring, their natural genetic coloring, and not breeding down for those really unique, rare colors is going to be a more responsible and healthier choice overall. So, as cool as a silver lab or a white lab or whatever colorway that has caught your eye or whatever breeder has renamed, whatever, as cool as that is, what's even cooler is having a well balanced and well behaved dog. As far as temperament and personality, this is going to vary. So, labs are super popular in the US, and a well bred lab, which is kind of hard to find anymore, is going to be lining up with what we're talking about. Most of the labs that I personally have dealt with have not been well bred. They are neurotic and anxious, not only from lack of owner care, but because of genetics. So it's important that when you are listening to these, that you understand that you also have to take into account each individual dog, because not all people breeding labs are doing it for the right reasons or are thinking big picture about it. So if you're thinking about getting this breed and you want to know how to find a good breeder, there's a couple things you can do. You can look for titles and certifications. You meet the breeder, meet the dogs, meet the parents. I cannot say this enough. Meet the parents so you know what your pup is going to look like when they grow up, what their disposition is going to be like. Also have a conversation with the breeder to know why they chose to breed these dogs. What was their focus to improve the breed? You know, they're going to be able to show really quickly if they're knowledgeable or not. The other thing to be aware of is that there are a couple types of labs that aren't necessarily like AKC recognized, but it's called an English lab versus an American lab. So an English lab is going to be that more traditional look about their face. They're a lot stockier, they're a lot thicker. They have a block head. They have the thickest noses. They're the cutest boys. I love them so much. And they tend to be calmer. American labs are going to be that leaner, more of the type of lab that you see in your head when we talk about this. And they have higher energy. So when you're looking at a dog, you can kind of look at how they look and see where they might be leaning on that. It's not going to be a hard, fast rule, but it'll help you to get an idea of their background. I've met a lot of great American labs, I've met a lot of great English labs, and I've met crazy ones of both of them. So again, take with a grain of salt. Okay, back to temperament and personality after that tangent. Their energy level is going to be pretty high. They're a working breed. When they're puppies and puppy teenagers, they can be especially energetic and enthusiastic. And this puppy stage, I like to say, as like a rule of thumb, it lasts 5 years. It takes about 5 years for your lab to grow up. So please keep that in mind when you're thinking about the commitment of the training consistency, especially in those first 5 years, that it will last 5 years. Whereas with a lower energy dog, it'll last like 1 or 2 years. They are extremely trainable when you teach them that you mean what you say. They love to please their people when you are clear with communication. They thrive on really clear structure and consistency and reward based training. These dogs love food. They love their toys. They have like an oral fixation because they are a retriever. They want to have something in their mouth because they need to retrieve. That's what they were bred to do. It's very instinctual for them. I give that caveat of being a clear communicator with this training thing because they will figure out what you mean and what you don't mean. And they will figure out when they need to listen, when they don't need to listen. So there's a lot of stubborn labs out there that they're not really stubborn. They just learned that their handler won't fight them on certain boundaries. So if you can be clear and consistent early and often, then you're going to be golden. But if you really struggle with holding boundaries and being consistent, this is going to be a really hard dog for you to train. They're typically very friendly. They love to be social. They usually love people, kids, and other animals, and sometimes can be too friendly, which, like any high energy friendly dog, they're going to want to crawl inside your skin because they love you so much. I've seen some very not friendly labs, and that is 100% from lack of socialization. So even though they're a friendly breed, that does not negate the need that they need to go out and see as many people, dogs, places as they can before they decide that the world outside of their house is big and scary and can't be trusted. I'm so sorry that I'm so out of breath, but I am in my third trimester and catching my breath is difficult, and somehow it's made way harder by sitting down to record this podcast episode. So bear with, I'm so sorry. Labradors tend to be pretty mouthy, like I said. They have that instinct to have something in their mouth, which also means that they might kind of grab at your hands, and not in an aggressive way, just because they're excited or they want your attention. They have a high potential to be destructive if they are bored and if their mental stimulation needs are not met, and a very strong tendency to be what one would call exuberant, energetic. They're like little coiled springs when they do not get their energy run out of them every single day. But like I said, they flip a switch at about 5 years old, then they're lazy couch potatoes. So, take this as like first half of life, second half of life is going to be a little bit different. As far as mental stimulation needs, like I said, they're going to require quite a bit. Daily structured exercise, a simple walk is not going to be enough for them, especially in those early years. Mental stimulation is going to be really important. They love to problem solve. They want to play the training games. They want to do the scent work. And they would love to have a job. This is the kind of dog that needs a job, or they will eat your couch. So the things that are going to come most easily to them is going to be swimming, retrieving, sniff work, have them hunt down some treats. They would love that. Running, playing, those kind of things. They can be taught to have more serious jobs like service dogs, medical alert training. There's so many opportunities for labs because they are highly intelligent and they love to please people. So, with that combination, that makes them really good workers for us. So like I said, if you're not meeting these physical and mental stimulation needs, they're going to become destructive. They're going to become anxious. They're going to get noisy. They're going to bark all the time, or they're just going to be really not well behaved. I've seen a bajillion labs on anxiety meds, and I completely attribute that to lack of socialization and lack of mental stimulation. Which, quick note on socialization, it is a form of mental stimulation. So feel free to add that to your list of things to burn some of that energy off. As far as the living environment goes, they're going to really thrive in an active household with access to space, like, a home with a backyard, or someone who likes to get out into the outdoors often. I've said this multiple times before, but any dog can be an apartment dog if they have an owner that isn't an apartment bound person, and an owner that gets out every day and prioritizes their exploration, their mental stimulation. These dogs love to live on a farm. However, they want to be around people too. So, as long as you are making sure that they get that person interaction, and you're still going to have to do all of the mental stimulation if you have an outdoor dog, but they would love to serve on a large property. And by serve, I mean bark at everything and sniff all of the things. These dogs were bred to work outside, so they can be adaptable to warm and cold. However, they always have that thick coat. So when it gets really hot in the summer, it's going to be really helpful to have water nearby for them to drink, to play in, to cool off in, because that dense coat will get hot pretty quickly, so they can overheat. For training and socialization, you're going to have some challenges with that excitement, with jumping, with pulling, all of the energy, and just getting them to focus. But they really do excel in obedience and retrieving and scent work and water sports and all of the things that we talked about before, because they are so smart and they want to please their people. So make sure that you are working on things early and that you are communicating and following through with that clear communication with action. Socialization is going to be essential early on to help minimize that fear, get them exposed to sounds, surfaces, people, controlled dog interactions, making sure that they're in a safe place when they meet these dogs. There's something called the socialization rule of 12. And if you are thinking about getting a puppy, I highly recommend making that a huge priority on your to-do list in the first few weeks of their life. And by first few weeks, I mean for 6 months. For family compatibility, they usually love to be in a family with kids, with lots of people. They're typically gentle and tolerant and affectionate. Younger labs are going to be less gentle just because they're really excited. With other pets, they usually love other dogs and are often good with cats as long as the cat doesn't teach them that chasing cats is really fun. So if you have a very confident cat in the home already, that's perfect. And the cat will tell the lab puppy to leave him alone. Or if you're bringing in a cat to the home, to make sure that you're never triggering that prey drive between the cat and the dog, because labs do have a prey drive because they are a working dog. As far as maintenance is going to go, grooming is going to be pretty minimal. I would still recommend brushing them weekly, not only because it's good for their coat to get that undercoat out to prevent some matting and some just excessive, disgusting hair clumps all over your house. I say disgusting when my house is always covered in a fine layer of hair. But just because they're short haired does not mean that they don't need brushed. They will need some brushing. They're going to be higher maintenance during that heavy shedding phase because labs shed a lot. You're also going to see that their ear care is going to need regular help if they have a tendency to get ear infections, which all labs do because they love water and they're not always good at keeping it out of their ears. So those ears get wet and then all of a sudden they have an ear infection, especially if they have allergies as well. So, in theory, you never need to take this dog to a groomer unless you want to make sure that they are doing all the things we just talked about: bath, brush, nails. They'll even clean their ears, check their anal glands. It's just a really good, like, in between vet appointments to take your dog to the groomer. Gives them a little bit of maintenance. As far as food is going to go, they love their food. They are very prone to overeating and can become obese, like without even trying. So you're really going to need to monitor how much they're eating and make sure that they're on a good quality dog food so that it's not just kind of like empty calories going in, but that it has a purpose. I tell people to try to start their dogs off teaching them to free feed and to learn to self-limit and to intuitively eat by knowing that this food is always going to be here. I don't have to gobble it up all at once. And I still say that for lab puppies with the caveat of make sure that they are absolutely not getting obese at an early age just because they grew up with siblings and they're just eating as fast as they can. So consider a puzzle bowl, consider helping them learn to eat a little bit slower like that. Medical care, so we're going to need to watch for joint issues. Hip and elbow dysplasia are pretty common, so that's something that you can make sure that your breeder is watching out for and testing for. Arthritis, super common. GDV, or gastric dilation volvulus, or bloat, is going to be a high risk in this dog because they have a really deep chest. So this usually happens where their belly is really full, whether they just drank a bunch of water, ate a bunch of food, and then they jumped around a lot, ran around a lot. Their stomach can actually flip on itself and cause that bloat, and it is fatal if it is not treated. They are known to have some heart issues, obesity, like we just talked about, lots of ear infections. Labs are healthy overall, and responsible breeders are going to screen for these things, but it is important to make sure that you are aware of these things that can happen. Some more disorders or diseases that are common is hereditary myopathy, which is muscle weakness, and eye conditions, including progressive retinal atrophy. There's also something called exercise-induced collapse, or EIC, which can occur in some young adult labs. A DNA test will allow breeders to identify carriers and to plan not to breed those dogs to avoid producing the disease or reproducing the disease in offspring. So that was a really long list of all the things that can go wrong. But again, things are going to go wrong with any dog. I'm just telling you these to make you aware of what to watch out for when you're shopping for a pup or looking to adopt, and to know that these are expensive things and to have that in mind financially. So insurance is a good idea for this breed if you're into pet insurance, just because they're very active and it would be so stereotypical lab puppy of them to break a bone before they're even 4 months old. So, to wrap it up, who is this breed for? Their ideal owner is going to be active, structured, engaged, enjoys training and spending time with their dog, and that really wants a companion for outdoor activities like hiking, swimming, running, playing, retrieving, all of those things. They're going to really thrive in that household. People who would not mesh well with a lab are low activity homes, people wanting an easy dog, and families who are just unprepared for a high energy puppy that stays a puppy for 5 years. You may be thinking, that's crazy to hear when there's so many Labrador service dogs out there. But service dogs go through so much training. I have a whole episode on how service dogs are trained, and it takes years of consistent and precise training to help curb that energy, which means you can make a difference in your dog if you do those things as well. I love labs. I would love to have one, but it's important to be honest with yourself about that time commitment. And for me personally, I am not willing to make that time commitment, not with a toddler and a baby on the way, and with the podcast and all of my side things. Like, when I look at my life really honestly and say, hey, am I willing to dish out an hour every single day for this dog? I'm not. And that's something you have to be honest with yourself. Are you actually willing? So I hope this episode helped. I hope it was educational. I got most of this information from the AKC website. I love the AKC website. If you have a breed that you're dying to learn about that I haven't covered yet, please look them up on that AKC website, and it'll help you decide where you're at with this breed, how you would mesh, all of the things. So I hope this was helpful. If you have a recommendation, please let me know for what to cover next. And I'll talk to you guys again very soon. Thank you so much for tuning into Hounding Harmony Dog Training. If you found this episode helpful, it would mean the world to me if you'd follow the show and leave a quick review. This helps other dog owners find the support that they need too. For more tips, training help, and encouragement, follow me on TikTok and Instagram at HH_dog training, or you can check out the resources in the show notes. Until next time, keep hounding that harmony.